Hello, BookTube. I have some mail for you today on an absolutely beautiful Tuesday. It's a little too windy for herself. We've been out a few times. It's very, very noticeable wind. It's not just breezes, it's definite wind. I think probably because we've got a frontal system coming in that's going to bring some rain later in the week. Don't know. It might just be a particular thing today and have nothing to do with that. But I've noticed that the bean does not like intrusive weather. She's not all that great with really rampant heat. She's really bad at dealing with heat. She's been that way her whole life. She doesn't particularly like intrusive cold, but she can ignore it. Rain, of course, we already know. She hates rain, and she's largely smart enough to know that snow is just uppity rain. So she's not wild about snow either. And I've noticed also that if there's wind instead of just breezes, if there's wind that actually ruffles her gorgeous coiffure, doesn't like that either. But it's not particularly warm, but it's a lovely, lovely day. And we have three here. We have things in three. We have three periodicals and three packages. And the periodicals range in their size of distribution. Let's just put it that way, to put it very nicely. For instance, the first one is the Bedford Times Press. I don't want to block the bean. The first one is the Bedford Times Press from Bedford, Iowa. A little bit ragged shape that it got to me, which is a local newspaper. It's all of its content is paywall, so you have to subscribe to get it, and it's all very local. So you might be wondering, well, why would I subscribe to a local Iowa newspaper that's full of local sports reportage and obituaries and whatnot? And the reason why is me. I am the reason why. Because the editor here at the Bedford Times Press and also at the Lennox Timetable gives me space for a column. Ample space for a column. 1,000 words. It just goes all the way down one half of the first page that you open when you open the newspaper. This is my first book column in 45 years, and is an absolute delight to write. I absolutely love it. I write my columns on the weekend. And you can get this column. It's not about local Iowa authors or anything like that. It's also not about Taylor County, where the Bedford Times Press is published. It's general bookish stuff. And if this is behind a paywall, you would have to subscribe to get it. You get this newspaper delivered to your door. This one starts out with a comment that John Wilson made on Twitter. When you write a book column for distribution, you realize right away that anything can be a column. Really, you just have to keep your eye open for it. A bookish friend recently noted that there's usually precious little critical attention given to the fact that the massive retailer Amazon begins each month with a list of 10 recommendations made by a group of the website's editors. Considering the sheer power of the site, the world's largest marketplace, with detailed listings for well over 30 million titles, this bookish friend wondered why nobody in the book chat profession ever seems to look at these monthly lists, sifting through the titles for any hidden gems. The implications are pretty clear, and I bet we all share them. Implication number one is that the critical world ignores these Amazon lists because such lists are obviously shallow and market-driven sales gimmicks rather than legitimate rankings done by honest brokers. And then I go on to the other limitations, and then naturally I go through the list of recommendations for this month from Amazon to sift and see if there are hidden gems. My friend online commented that nobody has the time or the bandwidth to be able to know that. I actually do. It's also my bailiwick. I very much read the popular mainstream press new releases in a whole bunch of different genres in the American book market. Unlike a lot of my critical brethren, I don't concentrate on new translations or stupid navel-gazing auto-fiction, literary fiction, or anything like that. Some of my critical brethren only read books about the American Revolution, for instance, or World War II. I love those subjects, but I don't confine myself to them. So I was in a perfect position to look at the Amazon listing for recommendations. That was a great column. Lots and lots of fun. Then next up in circulation, again, I won't block the beam. This is the Martha's Vineyard Gazette, a black and white broadsheet newspaper on the island of Martha's Vineyard off the coast of Massachusetts, where I am the book editor. I'm not the book editor. There's a book section editor. I'm the book reviewer. I think my editor probably has other people to review books, but I take up the lion's share of the burden, and I'm happy to do so. Such a thrill to be in the Vineyard Gazette. Every issue has a gorgeous full color, really not full color, high definition black and white photo on the cover. And then, of course, the most popular section is in the back, these 3 columns in the back. What I wouldn't give to write a column for the Vineyard Gazette, or to have my column run in the Vineyard Gazette. But it won't happen because the editor of the Vineyard Gazette makes an editorial decision. The book section editor makes a decision here that's totally valuable. It's totally viable. Do you want your coverage to be local or not? That's just a decision that you have to make. And my editor at the Gazette has decided that all of the book's coverage, everything written about the books, will be local. Fortunately, Martha's Vineyard is home to a great many writers, a great many millionaires, a great many vacationers. People over the last century and a half have had vacation homes there or vacationed there religiously. It casts a spell. If you've ever visited it, you'll know why. People keep going back to it. So that isn't quite as restricted as it would be if, for instance, the folks at Taylor County wanted a local column. That would be a very hard thing to do. But the Vineyard Gazette, there are plenty of Pulitzer Prize-winning authors who've made their homes there, who are the subjects of new biographies. There are plenty of authors. Even so, I do quite a bit of writing about the Vineyard in my book reviews for the Vineyard Bookshelf. And as with any summer-oriented thing, I mean, the Vineyard is a vacation haven. In the off-season, traffic tends to slow down. So I haven't done as many reviews for the Gazette as I would like in the last few months, but that will change as temperatures warm up. Once Memorial Day, Labor Day, whichever one of those holidays starts the traditional summer vacationing season, then the Vineyard's population goes from 20,000 to 250,000 overnight almost, and then more books will be in Vineyard bookstores, so there will be more call for Vineyard reviewers. And then the third periodical has the largest of the 3 subscriptions, and that is the TLS, the London Times Literary Supplement, the greatest literary review organ in the English language, which always has lots of things that are of interest. There's a long article, a headline article here about Michel Houellebecq, crapulent author who I'll have to read all about him. I won't particularly want to. But we always go to the letters page for the TLS. And there was a letter here that chilled me blood. I thought I'd read it to you and see if you have a similar experience. I bet a lot of you do. Someone writes from Links about the death of the Oxford University Press bookstore that they used to run. Paul Dean is right to be anxious about the sanctity of any deal between the OUP bookshop and Blackwell's in Broad Street, now that the latter is up for sale. The frontrunner to buy Blackwell's is, inevitably, Waterstones, which is owned by a not reliably bibliophilic New York hedge fund. Fronted by James Dodd, but owned by a hedge fund. And hedge funds notoriously, usually, traditionally, like to buy a property only so that they can create a fire sale, chop it up into bits and pieces, make a lot of value for their shareholders, and then dump the property. They're usually executioners gathered in the yard. They're usually not looking to preserve or improve anything. The fate of another storied bookshop, Foyle's, since it was purchased by Waterstones in 2018, is a cautionary tale. A recent visit revealed half of its ground floor given over to games, puzzles, and other non-bookish merchandise. Display shelves dedicated to actual books are dispiritingly standardized. Celebrity brand pseudo-novels, memoirs, self-help, and trending titles abound. Upstairs, the once impressive specialist departments are much depleted. Literary criticism, which in my childhood occupied much of the original building's ground floor, has been reduced to 2 or 3 incoherently organized shelves. The film section, which until recently contained studies of directors arranged alphabetically from Antonioni to Zinnemann, now offers a vestigial H for Hitchcock. Even the philosophy section, which along a strong point, is contracting while its false friend popular philosophy dilates. Foyle staff are constrained. Buying policy is now shaped by Waterstone's head office. Booksellers like Foyle's or Waterstones might protest that they offer a greater range of literary, specialist, and academic titles online, But in doing so, they are complicit in what they profess to oppose, the dematerialization of genuine book culture, and content to allow our remaining physical bookshops to become little more than convenient places to grab a coffee and the latest Richard Osman. Now, from the contents of this letter, you can divine right away that the writer is a roasting great snob. Not anyone you would probably want to talk books with. What are the tip-offs? What are the three things that the author most laments missing? Literary criticism, film, but snooty film. Notice the snooty mention of Hitchcock, and philosophy. Not exactly the bread and butter of bookshops at any time in their history, much less in 2022. So we know that the author of the letter is a ripping snob, and maybe you might be tempted to discount the letter on that grounds. But I could share this author's criticisms of a lot of what's happening to big retail bookstores, to the dumbing down of big retail bookstores, and I bet you can too. I wonder if you would have similar thoughts on your local bookstore and the shape that it's in. Has it been denuded of anything that you might want to look at, and turned over to games and non-bookish items? Certainly, if you walk into the only retail bookstore left in Boston, the Barnes & Noble at the Prudential Center, you will definitely notice that. You will be greeted by books. It's been worse in recent years. You'll be greeted by books, but a large amount of the front of the shop's real estate is tchotchkes and impulse buy items that aren't books. I don't know if there are numbers to support that. I know that the corporate speak 10 years ago, when that was first proposed to be done, was that this will carry its weight. It will make a lot more money per square inch of shelf space than the books in those places would have done. I don't know that there are numbers to justify that, but I wonder if it's happened in your bookstore. I'm pretty sure that the writer of that letter, snobbery notwithstanding, was issuing a common lament about the dematerialization of in-person book culture. So I wonder naturally about you. What about the big retail bookstore near you, the nearest big retail bookstore to you? Is it any good? Do you see a lot of the complaints that the letter writer is mentioning there, where the depth of the sections is terrible, the selection is terrible, organization is terrible, the staff maybe is terrible? This letter writer doesn't mention the staff not knowing anything. But what about your nearest big retail bookstore? Is it a haven or is it a disappointment? Always fascinating for me, since I spent a quarter of a century working in bookstores. But then we've got three packages. They're all in these brown envelopes, no boxes, but no manila envelopes, and they also range in size. Our periodicals ranges from very small, the Bedford Times Press is very small, to slightly larger, the Vineyard Gazette, and then the TLS, to ranging. And these also range in size from very small to a little bit larger to a little bit heavier. So the first one is actually a slim volume of poetry. Oh no. We read a poem every day on this channel now, and that delights me. And a few of you have said, why don't you read from the next slim volume of poetry that you get? And the reason why is because a lot of it would be really, really, really bad. But you never know. So what is this thing? This is by David Baker. It's beautiful. It's from W.W. Norton. It comes out in July, and it's called Whale Fall. Lovely cover there with streaming light and one humpback whale caught in the light there. So do we have pub sheet verbiage about books of poetry is usually less than worthless, but let's see what we have here. The sheet is just blurbs from previous stuff. Acclaimed as an essential voice of the American Midwest, David Baker expands both his environment and his form in his 11th collection of poetry. That's what this is. Whale Fall is about time measured in the wing beats of a hummingbird or the epochs of geological change, and about place, whether a backyard in Ohio or the slopes of a melting glacier. In its exquisite musical title poem, a deft hybrid of eco-poetic alarm and intimate narrative of illness, Baker transports us to the deep sea as a single whale carcass falls, decays, and is re-inhabited by a cosmos of teeming lives, which actually does happen. We have now filmed that in every stage of that whale fall. And what about the author? His many honors include fellowships and awards from the Poetry Society of America, the National Endowment for the Arts, and the Guggenheim Foundation. Okay, great. And he teaches at Denison University and lives in Granville, Ohio. Okay, great. Fantastic. So Whale Fall in July. If you really want me to read a few poems from contemporary poems, from the volumes that we get in the mail, I will work that into our daily poem. You want to do that. Some of you are curious and may not see these volumes otherwise. Then we'll move on to the next biggest of the packages. It's a finished copy of something. What have we got here? Oh my, it's a novel. It's a novel. And it's a novel by a name that we know. Interesting. Very interesting. The intersections that happen here. All right, so we don't need that. And what are you? You are the author's in-person tour. We certainly don't need that. I wouldn't go to an in-person book tour if you paid me. But we do need this. So this comes out in early April, right around the corner. And this is a new novel from Jonathan Galassi, who is in our poetry anthology. We just did a poem from the FSG Poetry Anthology, and he's one of the editors. And here he has a novel. This is a new novel of his. I don't want to block the beam. There's only so much space for things. This is called School Days by Jonathan Galassi. Jonathan Galassi is not more important than Frida, nor am I, nor are any of the books, and I know that, so I will keep a clear eye on the beam. So what have we got here? Lots and lots of blurbs, Kirkus Reviews, Book List, Publishers Weekly, Shelf Awareness. Galassi's a big name in the publishing industry, so if he does something, people pay attention. But what have we got about the book? The latest novel from acclaimed poet and publisher Jonathan Galassi follows a young man and his life-altering experiences at a New England boarding school. Here, Galassi weaves a story that poses fundamental questions about love and sex, friendship and rivalry, desire and power, and the age-old dance of benevolence and attraction between teacher and student. In this coming-of-age tale that navigates homosexual crushes and the politics of an elite community, the mysterious behavior of a brilliant classics teacher fascinates his students until charges against him begin to emerge. Capturing the very sober realities of sex and sexual misconduct, School Days wades into the charged waters of privilege, legacy, and memory to deliver a deeply observed portrait. Okay, Sam Brandt is a long-term denizen of Connecticut's renowned Leverett School. As an English teacher, he has dedicated his life to providing his students with the same challenges, encouragement, and sense of possibility that helped him and his friends become themselves here at this same institution a lifetime ago. Then Leverett's headmaster asked Sam to help investigate a charge brought by one of his classmates that he was abused by a teacher. Sam is flooded with memories of attending Leverett in the 60s, the beautiful reaches of the campus, the constellation of boys whose lives were, at one point, knit up with his own, the support and friendship of his most inspiring mentor, Theodore Gibson, and above all, his overwhelming love for his friend Eddie. Sam's search for the truth becomes a quest to get at the heart of Leverett, then and now. The school has changed enormously over the years, but at its core lie assumptions about privilege and responsibility untested for more than a century. And Sam's assumptions about his own life are shaken too, as he struggles to understand what really happened all those years ago. As Sam circles ever closer to the truth, reconnecting his now aging peers and mentors he once idolized, he begins to suspect that a circle of fellow alumni might be withholding important, even damning, revelations. So there's a bit of a plot here, in addition to what I suspect is a whole lot of member berries on the part of Jonathan Galassi, who did go to such an institution. Let us see. The chairman of Farouse, Strauss & Giroux, former poetry editor for the Paris Review, former chairman of the Academy of American Poets, and the recipient of a Guggenheim Fellowship for Poetry. And his first novel, Muse, was published in 2015. Okay, so you would probably have to go to his Wikipedia to find out if there is a Leverett equivalent in his background. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't matter. He can still write a really good, well-realized novel, even if a lot of it is grounded on his own past. We shall see. I guess the point here is that I don't hold anyone above suspicion anymore when it comes to the rot of autofiction. I think it has reached everywhere in the fiction world. You don't get any higher in the fiction world than Jonathan Galassi. And if it's reached him, well, then it's everywhere. And this could be that, but it could still also be good. I have occasionally read examples of autofiction that were good. And this comes out really soon. This comes out in early April, and we've got a week left in March. So I can get to this tonight, unlike Whale Fall. I wouldn't feel right getting to Whale Fault tonight when I've got so much on my plate. But this isn't going to take any time. All right. So we've got a slim volume of poetry and a novel. Now we'll do this last volume, this last envelope, which is heavier than the other two put together, and then we'll be done. So what do we got here? Another finished copy. That's great. And here we have, oh, gross. All right, we've got an invoice. We don't want that. What is this thing? Oh, my. Oh, well, no wonder it's heavy. It's on heavy-duty paper because it's enormously illustrated. Oh, my. Oh, somebody cue Olive. This is by Boreas Sachs, and this is Avian Illuminations, A Cultural History of Birds. And it's on heavy-duty paper, and it's elaborately illustrated. Color and black and white, paintings, sculptures, cartoons, photographs, just everything. Oh my, somebody page Olive. So this is a reaction book, hence a finished copy, and it doesn't have a sheet in it, so I'm assuming that this thing is out already, or is a March release at the very least. And I don't have a sheet for it, but we can read about it before I send it off. Let's see here. Birds play many roles in human societies, from food, messengers, deities, and pets, to omens, muses, timekeepers, and custodians. They are our hunting companions, decorative motifs, and most importantly, living embodiments of our aspirations. Also independent beings on their own. They don't have to serve us. Okay, but anyway, this book narrates the history of our relationship with a host of birds, including crows, owls, parrots, falcons, eagles, nightingales, hummingbirds, and many more. Along the way, the author describes how birds' nesting has symbolized human romance, and how their flight has inspired inventors throughout history, highlighting interconnections between books and humans. So in other words, very, very familiar territory. We've seen a dozen of these books just in the length of this channel, and I've seen hundreds of them. This is a very common way, birds in our lives, that sort of thing. This has been done for centuries. Doesn't mean that it can't be done well, and it's really nice that you have famous cover of the goldfinch with a goldfinch. This is from the Donna Tartt novel. There's the real deal. Very nice. That's the sort of thing that will sell a thing like this to me, is that no matter how many times this approach has been done, let's look at birds through art and, literature and memoir and natural history and whatnot. That is a very, very familiar thing to do, but it can still be wonderful. This could still be wonderful. Same thing with the Galassi novel, a coming-of-age novel, a look-back novel, maybe a little bit of wool gathering on the author's part about his time at a storied prep school that had, as storied prep schools tend to do, an active, bubbling subcurrent of homoeroticism. That has been done many, many, many times before. It can still be done well. I'm not expecting anybody to invent the wheel here. In publishing, in the world of letters, there's nothing new under the sun. It's all about execution. So this could still be fantastic. And I'm going to want to send it to Olive anyway. Even if it's not fantastic, she's still going to want it. She wants, as she says, all the bird books. So there you go. That was our mail for today. 3 periodicals and 3 books. We have Avian Illuminations. We have School Days by Jonathan Galassi, famous poet and poetry editor, translator, who's the mind behind the FSG poetry anthology that we've been reading from on this channel. And Whale Fault by David Baker with this lovely cover. A slim volume of poetry that isn't coming out until the middle of summer. So quite some time for those. Nice variety here, fiction, poetry, and a bird book. Very nice as a nice mail haul for a lovely day. So we're going to go out and about and work off a little steam. But I'll be back. We'll have mail tomorrow to go through, I'm sure. So I'll see you then. Thank you, BookTube. You ready to go out, baby?